Fab.
Hello folks, it's Maff Potts here from the Camarados movement. Thought I'd just play a little bit of piano as people start joining. I hope you don't mind. Hello lovely people, how are you? It's Monday lunchtime with the Centre for Homelessness Impact. How you doing? I hope you've got a brew. Please tell me in the chat if you've got a brew on. My biscuit of choice, as always, is the mighty custard cream. Hello. Do tell me your biscuit choices in the chat. I'd love to get to know you. I want to see if there's any Bourbon fans out there. Gary Baldy. Have we got any jammy Dodgers today? Anybody? Yes, I agree, Hannah. Always Yorkshire tea, except no substitute. So we're hanging out today. I say, Francesca's on the chai lattes. Hey there, Francesca, very sophisticated. Mark likes his hobnobs. You know, isn't it interesting? Because I'm old enough to remember when hobnobs were like this new kid in town, like kind of, whoa, what's this, a hobnob? Now, of course, hobnob is kind of, you know, it's your regular biscuit, really. This is the kind of heady talk you can expect from me this morning, this afternoon, in fact. Alfie likes a custard cream. Alfie, I've got loads, mate. So, do you want one? There we go. There you go. I'm sending it through the ether. There you go. So I suppose we better talk about what we're here to talk about. And the lovely people at the Centre for Homelessness Impact have asked me to talk about collective resilience. Big words. And I am going to use the questions they've given me for the next 20 minutes. And then maybe we can have a conversation over a cuppa about it. I am Maff and Maff Potts. And I did used to work, I guess, in the homeless sector for about 20 years. Did most kind of types of homeless provision, I guess. I was had a brush with homelessness myself, mainly mental health problems. Then I volunteered in shelters for many, many years, homeless shelters with crisis. Then ended up advising the government for a while, back when Yvette Cooper was housing minister. Then I ran the biggest provider in the country, Salvation Army, for a few years. Then I was the chief exec of an organisation called People Can, which very sadly came a cropper to a pension problem and went under. So that was fairly awful. Resilience required for that one. And I've kind of done lots of work in and out around homelessness, but I kind of gave up, burnt out, spat out by the sector really. Because it wasn't focusing on the stuff that I thought made a difference in people's lives. So set up a movement in my bedroom. Didn't get very far until I asked for help from other people. Now I'm very happy to say there's people popping up all over the world who are camarados. And it's very much to do with collective resilience. In fact, it's all about collective resilience. So question one for me is, what does resilience mean to you? Well, when I think resilience, I think, once I was afraid, I was petrified, kept thinking I can never live without you by my side, and I spent so many nights thinking how you did me wrong, but I grew strong and I knew how to carry on and became very resilient. Yeah, you see, we don't really use resilience in song lyrics, do we? Not a lot. We don't really say resilience in normal speak, let's be frank. It doesn't pass the Dave test, as I would call it. So the Dave test is when a fellow I used to know called Dave would come into the homeless hostel I used to run in Soho, a West Sleepers hostel, and the organisation I was running used to run this hostel. And if Dave came through the door, would I say, "Hey Dave, are you interested in being more resilient today?" I think Dave would probably give me a 2-word answer, and the second one would be off. So I don't think we use it in normal parlance, to be fair. So that's the downside of talking about resilience. Resilience is something written by people in documents who are providing services for people having tough times. It tends to come from people who think they know what other people need. So I'd avoid it if possible. Having said that, it's a very good word in the sense that it recognises one thing, which is we all have tough times. Now, the Camarados movement is broader than homelessness. It's anyone going through a tough time. So we've done a lot of work in hospitals. We've had 130,000 people come through our public living rooms in hospitals. We've had 700 students a day use the Bristol University public living room. So we have students and, doctors, but also people in communities who may or may not be homeless. And it's just tough times. If I asked everybody listening now to put their hand up, no matter where they are, I can't see you, if you've ever had a tough time, I'm going to guess there's a lot of this going on right now. So resilience accepts the fact that we all have tough times. And I guess we want to come through them. So resilience to me means overcoming that. What it doesn't mean is success at the end of it, an outcome, some amazing tick. It just means getting through it. I don't know about you, but I've been through stuff in my life, as I mentioned, and you live with it. You don't get over it. So resilience is living with something rather than solving it. I'll say more on that later. So question 2. Question 2 is, should communities have to be more resilient? Well, that's interesting. I'm going to focus on have to be. Because, you know what, I'm just going to posit this idea for you today. Maybe not. Because in the time we've been building the Camarados movement, we've found some people who they've not made it through their tough times. And I'm immediately thinking of one Camarado in particular, who very sadly found himself at the one end of new psychotic substances, NPS, if you've heard of that. One called Black Mamba, and he ended up dead of an accidental overdose on someone's sofa. And we'd just spent 2 years with him in the Camarados movement. And I remember carrying his coffin into his funeral because he didn't know anyone. So I was a pallbearer. I'd only known him a couple of years. Went into a very empty crematorium because he didn't really know anyone, like I said, and no family left. And they'd all been taken by drugs, actually. And I was sat there and I was thinking about him. And I was thinking, what's the point of this Camarados thing? Because we didn't save this guy, right? We didn't transform his life. And then I opened the order of service at the funeral. And there, in the middle of this document, were pictures. And these were pictures of all the Camarados he'd met in the last 2 years. Previously, he'd spent all his life in and out of jail. As I say, his family had gone. He didn't have anyone. And here were 2 years full of playing frisbee in the park, having a laugh by the seaside, fish and chips, just hanging out. And yes, he didn't make it. But you know what? If you're going to be in the gutter and in a rut of tough times, whether you're homeless or not, it's good not to be alone. And at least there's custard creams and a cup of tea and someone else. So actually, do they have to be resilient? Well, I would hope so. And Camarados, we hope that by being alongside each other, people find a way out. But if they don't, is it so bad that they had fun while they were struggling? That they weren't alone? We're so solution obsessed, aren't we? That we forget about having a nice time. So that's what I would say to that. Okay, question 3. The power of community in personal resilience. Okay, well, I'm going to tell you a story. And someone at the Centre for Homelessness Impact called Hannah, who's a member of our movement, a wonderful person, she wanted me to tell you a story about Connect 4. Familiar with Connect 4? Do you remember? Yellow and red little discs in like a little plastic thing. You pop it in. You know, if you're not clever enough for Scrabble, you play Connect 4. That's what I think. Anyway, so I play a lot of Connect 4. And our movement was running a public living room in Camden Town. And oh my, Camden Town is busy. And we were in a park outside. Sofas, armchairs. I ought to tell you that a public living room is one of the things we do in Camarados. We just put a public living room somewhere public. Sofas, armchairs, always fairy lights, a standard lamp, tea and coffee, and people just get alongside each other. And the power of community and personal resilience was one day there was a fella who wandered in. There were so many people who just wander our streets between appointments. You know, they might have an appointment with a housing worker, maybe a mental health worker. What happens all the hours in between? They wander the streets, and they would wander into our public living room, and one fella sat down and he said to someone there, you know, I've been walking up and down the street today looking for somewhere to kill myself, and I couldn't really find anywhere, and then I wandered in here, and I've been playing Connect 4 for the last few hours and having custard creams, and you know what, I don't think I'll do it anymore. I've had a really nice time. This has been lovely. It's kind of reminded me, people are great. So you can't tell me that Fairy Lights Connect 4 custard creams is just fluffy stuff that you add on if there's time, because we've got to deal with hard housing outcomes and mental health outcomes. No, it's the stuff that saves people's lives. And that shouldn't be a shock to you. Think about all the times you're in a personal crisis. Okay, think about those awful times. Okay, now think about a police station, a council office, a hospital. Do these places conjure up images of comfort and joy for you? No. So you don't get many fairy lights in a police station. So I think we need to make things a little bit more human and meet people where they are. And this was the next question about the power of being alongside and not fixing. Yeah. In answer to the question about that, yes, not fixing is a big one for Camarados. I spent 20 years in homelessness right up in people's faces trying to sort them out. That was my job. And I thought I was powered by, righteous truth. I certainly got up every day to help people when I ran hostels, day centres for people, homelessness, domestic violence, all of that. And the problem is that the people I was working with, they expect everyone to open their mouth and immediately try to fix them, because that's all they ever get. So it's really hard to have a conversation, isn't it? If every time someone who talks to you in a hostel, or a key worker or anyone working in homelessness, and I'm making this very homelessness centric because I'm here at the invite of the Centre for Homelessness Impact. But as I say, Camarados is anyone going through tough times. But it's really hard, isn't it, that if that's your life and people only ever talk to you about your housing or whatever. So I would really encourage you just to get alongside someone and talk about someone else. Talk about the last season of Strictly, or, why did Pep Guardiola decide to completely change the way he played football in the Champions League final? It would be nice to start by looking people in the eye and asking their name. What other social situation do you get where people come in and immediately start talking about your housing and offering you money? That is the experience. That is the homelessness experience. Okay, you don't at a party. You go up to people and you say, "Hey, how you doing? What are you up to? Did you see the game? Whatever." So get alongside people and don't fix. Now, I've been asked to talk about the Camarados principles. Yeah, well, no fixing is one of them. It's amazing actually what does happen and how things can get better when you don't come in with that intensity of fixing. People often find the answers themselves. Another principle is about it's okay to be a bit rubbish. It's okay to fail. In fact, we've even had a badge made, which is very popular. I don't know if you can see this. Can you see that? Yeah, it says, "I'm a bit shit sometimes." And that is a very popular bit of merchandise. And when people see you wearing that, they tend to look up at you and say, "Me too, pal." If you want to build trust and understanding, which is what all these principles are about, if you want to build trust and understanding and connection with people, just give them permission to talk about being rubbish. It's a lovely thing to do for someone to say, you know what, I don't know the answer to that. Imagine if someone says that to you. You know, I don't really, I'm a bit rubbish at that. I mean, it's got to be something that's genuine. You're not trying to trick them. Imagine if you had a badge which said, I am outstanding all the time. Well, you wouldn't really want to hang out with that person. Another principle is about, it's okay to disagree. In our public living rooms, we realized that, people got very het up in this place of human connection if they met someone they didn't agree with. So we try and relax that and say, hey, look, it's all right to disagree. In fact, we would highly recommend that you sit down with people you disagree with and have a listen. That leads us on to the next principle, which is mix with people who aren't like you. We came across this principle the very first public living room we had. We opened it up in a garage in the middle of Sheffield. It used to belong to a funeral director, and we turned the mortuary into the cafe, the kitchen. And we blagged a few sofas and fairy lights on FreeCycle. None of this has to cost you anything. Please don't do a funding application to be a Camerado. Just get started. Grab some sofas and do it. And so we did exactly that in January in Sheffield. And people started, years back, and people started wandering in, and we suddenly noticed there were homeless people there, but there was also people with Louis Vuitton luggage and Nikon cameras who thought the whole place was really boho and cool. And then we had builders in high-vis jackets coming in for a cuppa, and students and tourists and grannies knitting. And we suddenly realised we don't see this very much in our society. People mixing, genuinely mixing. You're either a Cafe Nero person or, Kentucky Fried Chicken person maybe, but when do we mix? So mixing is a great thing because we learn a hell of a lot more about each other, and we stop stigmatizing, we stop labeling, and we're just people. The principle there's other ones, you can find them on our website. The one I'm going to just leave you with before I move on to questions is you don't change people's lives by helping them. I know. There's a big one for you. You transform people's lives by asking them to help you. Yeah, massive light bulb for me. This took me years to realise it. I'm a massive fixer. I am the worst fixer, by the way. Constantly fixing. So it's been hard for me to learn this one. But if you get out of the way and ask someone to help you, what happens is that person who is completely wrapped up in their own troubles. I don't know about you, but people are in tunnel vision when they're having a tough time. It's terrible. It's hell. If you say, listen, I'm worried about this. Can you help me with it? Can you do me a favour? The dynamic shifts. And they say, yeah, sure. And within 10 minutes, they're telling you to calm down. They've come out of their problems. They're worrying about you. They've got ideas. They feel trusted. They feel valued. They feel it's worth hanging around because I'm coming to help you. They've got purpose. Boom! Purpose. And also, you've said, listen, I don't have all the answers either. All of that is conveyed by saying, listen, could you do me a favour? All of that. So, it's really interesting. The final question is, they've said, how have you applied this to your own life? Well, I started working in homelessness, and although, Camarados is broader than that, but back in the day, I started when my parents died. I lost my dad at 21 and my mum at 18. And I sort of lost my marbles too. And I thought, you know what? Christmas without them isn't going to be much fun. I'm going to spend it in a homeless shelter. And I spent about 14 Christmases doing that. And I went along to the homeless shelter thinking, wow, I'm such a great guy. I'm amazing. I'm going to help these people at Christmas. Wow. And all my friends said, Maff, yeah, you're amazing. I know. So I went along to the homeless shelter. Of course, what I discovered very quickly was that these people who had nothing and were struggling to cope with life, they got me through Christmas. They got me through Christmas. A white middle-class boy who was lost. They got me through Christmas. With this, cup of tea, custard cream. They invited me and they talked to me and they looked out for me. And that was the game changer for me. They needed me to do something for them and vice versa. Mutuality, folks. Don't believe social Darwinism and all that crap, okay? Read up on your Kropotkin. Remember that mutualism and collaboration is the natural mindset for humanity. It's just we've forgotten, okay? Let's get back to looking out for each other. So that was massive in my life. And then since then, like I've been saying, and I'll finish on this. The principle about no fixing has been a defining moment in my life, is that I constantly have to get out of the way. If I had one piece of advice for the government and other people, is please get out of people's way. They have the talents and they can do it. How many bosses out there? Are you listening? If you run a team and manage staff, are you in the way? You know what? I bet you are quite a lot of the time. Try asking them to help you. Admit to being a bit weak and making mistakes and being a bit shit sometimes. Stop trying to fix them and fix everything and come with a solution just because you're the boss. Start saying, look, can you give me a hand? I'm not sure. I don't know. Watch what happens. It will be amazing. Okay, there you go. The world according to Maff. Sorry, that was a bit preachy. I am now going to move to questions. So this is your turn. Question time. Diminished chords there to build mystery and dread. Let's go through the wound window and look at questions. Sarah, I think you might have asked a couple of questions. Let's have a look. Oh, here's a question to start off with. I wonder if you have any thoughts on what community work will look like as we enter a post-COVID period. Are there any lessons we can take with us? Brilliant, Sarah. If that's the standard of questions, then I think that's going to be great. So, the pandemic. Did you notice at the beginning of the pandemic, if, like me, you thought, I have no idea what to do, and you probably Googled all the big boys and girls in community work, and their websites said this: find a local WhatsApp group or Facebook group. This was the big lesson from the pandemic, was that institutions had nothing, but your street had everything. That's right, folks. We don't have to call ourselves volunteers or support workers. We just call ourselves neighbours. Yep. Getting bored of the piano yet? Sorry. Yes, that's the biggest lesson for the post-COVID era, is that people who never ever got involved in, I guess what Sarah's calling community work, got involved. There was a woman locally who organised all the local people to collect prescriptions for older people and all of that. She ran a little helpline service, and not paid, just a lovely woman who wanted to do something for her community. The whole time she kept trying to be accosted by the council and corralled into their strategy and to make referrals, and she had to constantly beat them away and say, look, I've got the trust of people street by street. As soon as I centralise this and make this a council initiative, that's gone. So hopefully one of the big lessons is that people realise that people can do this and they don't always need you. Kate, how can we still plan for public living rooms and Camarado's open community spaces if we go back into lockdown? A lot of my homeless clients are digitally excluded and don't have access to Zoom or WhatsApp. What can we do if things get bad again? Fingers crossed they don't. Yeah, fingers crossed they don't, Kate. Well, I'm going to answer that in a couple of ways. I'll come to the digital issue in a minute. Firstly, I'm very, very happy to say that we thought maybe people had forgotten about Camarado's and public living rooms, but with lockdown easing, they've all started up again, which most of them, 99% of them, which is great. I think people need to be together, so that's wonderful. All over the world, Baltimore, New Zealand, as well as Brighton and Bognor. So that's great. During lockdown, we put a thing out on Twitter saying, any ideas? We don't know what to do. The joy of being a movement is that other people have better ideas than you. And so a Camarado in Berlin got in touch with us and said, I run my whole business online. Let me help you make a virtual public living room. And so we've done that, and people have started running these things called spoon rooms, where you bring a spoon to a Zoom call. I know, sounds strange, but the spoon is like a talking stick, and you just hold it when you're speaking and you wave it when you want to speak, and it stops Zoom becoming a bit stressy. And people get alongside strangers in little breakout rooms and talk about their week. Now, actually, some people who are homeless have joined us. They've been able to get online because a lot of people have phones. And one woman joined us in the dark because she'd had all of her electricity and heating cut off, but she wouldn't miss Spoon Room. That shows you how important companionship is in her list of priorities. Don't believe Maslow. So yeah, there's a lot of people who've found us through Spoon Room, and my team runs one every Wednesday night and Saturday morning. Please find out about it and come and join us. It's the loveliest hour in your week. But yeah, there's some people who can't do that. So what we started doing, Kate, was things called midday meanders, where people basically spread the word through their networks that at midday on a Tuesday or whatever, we're going to meet in the park and have a walk for an hour using the Camarados principles. No fixing, permission to be rubbish. And they go for a walk. No more than 6 people at a time, obviously, for the lockdown rules. Or sometimes that's just been one other person. So we've done a bit of that, which is not digital, of course. Sometimes for people with mobility issues, we've done Camarados Park Life, which is you just go and sit in the park and be alongside each other. So we've tried a few things non-digitally. I don't think we've got it entirely right, if I'm to be honest. I think there's some wonderful things been happening. I know that there's been sort of street bingo. I used to run a sing-along in my street where I took the piano and every house chose a request and made a request for a song, and we printed out song sheets and everyone sang at their doorstep. That was nice. Bit of connection. So yeah, but all ideas welcome, Kate. If you've got better ideas, if we go into lockdown again, I'm going to get in touch with you because I'm buggered if I know. Question from the Q&A box. Oh, there's a Q&A box. Okay, Sarah, I'm going to need your help. I can't. Where's the Q&A? Ah, there's the Q&A box. Sorry. How do you keep well nowadays, Maff? What are my top tips? Oh, thanks, Kate. Please do be in touch. Yeah, you're a Camarado now, Kate. You're a member of the movement. You got to help us out. Lydia, how do I keep well? Well, you know, the whole Camarados movement is based around the fact that we all need 2 things in life. And if you want to be, I guess, resilient, to use the word of the day, you can't do it without these 2 things. And these 2 things are friends and purpose. So the friends comes from having a connection with people. So, you know, if you don't have any friends, you're in trouble. So go look out for someone and make a connection. It can be a 5-minute conversation with the person in the newsagent. You know, it could be someone at the bus stop. In fact, a Camarado in Blackpool 4 years ago, we overheard him saying, "Listen, mate, I'm not your friend, but I'm your Camarado. I've got your back." And we were like, "What?" So we said to him, why can't this person be your friend? What's a Camarado? What do you mean? And he said, well, a Camarado is halfway between a stranger and a friend. All I need is someone for 10 minutes alongside me who's got my back. So I would say I keep well by, yeah, kind of looking out for people, because that gives me a sense of purpose as well. So, you know, at the moment, there's some people in my street really struggling, so I'm eating for a cup of tea and nothing else. We go for a walk around the town common, and that keeps me well, because I come away thinking, well, I've done something in my day, haven't I? So I think we need to get away from this notion that keeping well is about doing something for yourself. We are the me generation. Well, several generations of me-ness now. I think if you maybe... I've been thinking of getting a t-shirt printed which says, "It's not about you." Maybe just, you know, keep an eye out for someone else, because guess what? The personal benefit back to you will be huge. So is there any other questions? I'm going into the Q&A box. Please ask me another question, and I will play some holding music until a question comes in. That was awful, sorry. Any more questions? What I guess would just say, if... oh, here we go. Maybe a silly question, but what are your top tips for being a good neighbour? How do you best reach out to your community? Brilliant, Nick. What a great question. It's not always easy, is it? And it's not easy if you're maybe an introvert and maybe you don't feel that comfy. But you know what? I quite regularly knock on the door of my neighbour and say, "Have you got an egg?" Because I'm always trying to get good at baking, and I always forget that baking involves eggs. I don't know why. I just think flour, you know. So that's a great way to start a conversation. Even if they say no, you've met them. I think if you go with a low bar for conversation, stop thinking you have to be a startling conversationalist, that you have to have the answer to everything or fix anything. Sometimes just sitting next to someone going, "All right, you know, and not demand anything particularly. I just find that is great, so make it about someone else. If you got an egg, do you know the way to so-and-so? And then say, oh, I like your jacket, by the way. This is small talk gets a bad name. Having fun, being a bit silly, sharing a joke, talking about Strictly. This is the stuff of life, and people give it a bad name. When I was working in homelessness, we all had to wear black and carry a needs and risk assessment with us at all times, and preferably find an interview room with wired glass. Funnily enough, folks, this doesn't really turn things around for people. So let's be more human and just knock on your neighbour's door and say, cup of sugar. It's the oldest trick in the book. So I am wrapping up now because, and as I'm wrapping up, I'm going to quickly answer Kate's question. Can you combine Camerado spaces with art projects? Yes. In fact, we had a public living room inside an arts centre in Oxford once, and it was wonderful. We employ an art activist. Please get involved with all your ideas. We work with rappers, poets, artists, street artists, the works. Get in touch at office@Camerados. We would love to meet you. Art is the stuff of life. So thank you very much for listening to me. I think I've wildly overstayed my welcome. And I will play you out with a song called I Wish I Knew How It Would Feel to Be Free. And let's all get clapping. Be more human. Be a Camerado. Everyone's swaying out there. Yeah. I wish I knew how it would feel to be free. Say it loud, say it proud. Thank you very much for listening to me today.